NORAD has known about UFOs for going all the way back from the day it was formed. You know, my experience, I told you about scrabbling the two jets after UFOs on the West Coast here about 50 years ago. There was nothing unique about that. There were hundreds of cases like that. That happens all the time, except NORAD doesn't publish the information. They don't publish that at all, so people are not aware that these incidents are happening all the time. And the one thing they do know, that these aliens, spacecraft, have never taken offensive action against our fighter jets. Now, I know that you know the story of Captain Mantell. You? Alfred?
Yes, it was at God-Man Air Force Base, and it was Mantell. You see, I wrote about that back in the 70s and put forth a theory called the context communication of extraterrestrial communication, which is that encounters like that are almost like symbolic communications. In other words, they chose an airbase named God-Man in order to start making human beings think about God.
Well, in the case of Captain Mantell, when he chased that UFO, I inquired about that because there have been other similar, not many, but occasionally other similar incidents. When he got too close to the UFO didn't take offensive action against him at all, didn't fire any weapons or anything like that. But the UFOs emit a very powerful electromagnetic force, energies. And when our fighter aircraft gets within that sphere, it interacts with the physical dimension of the aircraft and literally will explode the aircraft. And that's exactly what happened to Captain Mantell.
Well, what this implies for a Pleiadian representative of the Council of Eight to address the General Assembly in New York or the Palace of Nations in Geneva, if they choose that site, but most probably the General Assembly in New York, there's going to have to be a worldwide transformation of governments between now and 2014. Because right now, as you know, the orders are shoot to kill.
No.
They aren't?
In Russia, they are. Not in the United States. Russia just shot down a UFO and killed all its crew here about 4 years ago. Because, you see, it goes way back to the days of Stalin and Roosevelt. When the Booties, they are abductors, when they contacted the American and Russian governments, because they posed the greatest threat with their missiles, their rockets, their fighter jets, and so forth. And so they said, look, would you turn a blind eye to our abductions if we give you some alien technology? And Roosevelt and Truman and their military top aides discussed it and decided yes, because we don't, then they'll give it to the Russians. But Stalin took a different approach altogether. He said, no. He said, we'll have nothing to do with them. And if they ever take any action against a Russian citizen, we'll shoot them down. And they've done this. This is not the first time. Not often, but they've done that. Because most of the time they just ignore them. But with the United States, I don't know of a single. And Dave, my good friend, a lifelong friend in the NORAD intelligence, who knew the situation, and according to the information he had, he doesn't know of a single incident where a USAF or Canadian fighter jet ever shot at a UFO.
Okay, Stan, let me provide you with some historical data that I'm personally familiar with. Yep. Number one. And that's because one of my research associates, Will Allen, is a very fine gentleman who was on Air Force One, an officer on Air Force One for under 3 administrations of Bush Sr., Clinton, and Bush Jr. And he has a Booties implant in him, and he goes out and he now photographs the Booties UFO coming in over the Capitol. In July 1952, you have the Booties UFOs manifesting in July 1952 right over the U.S. Capitol. The photographs are in newspapers throughout the world. There, Truman dispatched F-86s. 2 of those were shot down because the F-86s were ordered to go after them to shoot them down.
What year was that, Alfred?
That was 1952.
Okay, yeah, but possibly at that stage, because they were very paranoid in the American military and the government. Well, I'll say the government at the presidential level, and so because they didn't really know too much about them, they knew about the abductions, but nothing else. So yeah, that's possible. Yeah, I won't deny that.
No. And also, I have photographs of a Bootes hyperdimensional UFO being chased by U.S. fighter jets scrambled out of Maryland in July 2002.
Oh, yeah. Is that I did the same. I sent 2 Canadian Air Force jets after these UFOs. Not with orders to shoot or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was just to report back what they could see.
But then, okay. So, what are the set of circumstances under which the Pleiadian representatives and ambassadors would speak at the UN in 2014? We're now in 2010.
Yep.
The changes between now and then would be so wonderful and so magnificent. What do you envision those changes to be?
Well, see, that's just that I don't see, according to transgenders, they don't see anything wonderful and changes taking place in the next 2 years. It's very much like the Mayan prophecy predicted.
Oh.
Yes, because, you see, there's Earth change. Environmental crisis is one thing. That's the pollution of our atmosphere.
Yeah.
Now, Earth changes is earthquakes, tsunamis, tornadoes, all that sort of thing. It's starting. It'll probably even start this winter with massive Earth changes in Asia. And you remember what Edgar Casey said about Japan? Eventually would disappear.
Yeah.
And look, and also Eastern China, the east coast of China will be devastated, and so many other lands out there will be seriously affected. And so it starts then. It'll start maybe this winter, and it gradually gets worse, but 2012 is the worst year of all. So there are not good years at all, Alfred. I'm sorry, but according to the transgenders, those are grim years ahead of us.
So that what you're saying is that by 2014, all of this duress may have transformed humanity to the extent where there would not be resistance to the Pleiadians appearing at the United Nations. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. No, by that time, the world will have been accustomed to seeing them. There will be some interaction and communication with them and this sort of thing. So, no, we'll be ready for them in 2014. Because by 2015, the transgenders told me is that they must appear in our atmosphere. If they're going to clean up our atmosphere, they're going to be in our third dimension. So you may have 200-300 spacecraft up there in our atmosphere, cleaning up our atmosphere, and they will be seen, but at least we'll know what they're doing. But it may take them as long as 12 to 15 months in order to clean up our atmosphere.
Now, Stan, we have only a couple of minutes left in this segment. Would you be willing to stay over some extra time?
When?
Now.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Let me just take a quick break. We'll take just a quick break, and we'll be back momentarily with Stan Fulham, a former NORAD officer and author of Challenges of Change. This is Exopolitics Radio. I'm your host, Alfred Weber. Please stay tuned. Thank you. Welcome back. This is Alfred Lambermont Weber, and we're rejoining a very challenging discussion with author Stanley A. Fulham, a former NORAD officer and author of Challenges of Change. Welcome back, Stan.
Yes, Alfred.
Well, we have just gotten to the present moment, and we're looking at the scenario between 2010, October 13th, was sort of when humanity got to see, I guess, what they call the handwriting on the wall in terms of predicted UFO sightings over New York City, predicted by yourself, and that's important because you predicted them along with a 350-page book that is filled with wisdom and information from an interdimensional group that brings information from a regional galactic governance authority to this planet. So this is quite a planetary update that we're getting. But where we the point where we were in our last segment is that it appears that we're now in 2010, and what the Council of Eight has said, and the Transcenders have said, is that in the year 2014, the representatives for the Council of Eight, which is a regional galactic governance authority representing 8 major star systems within the galaxy, would be addressed physically by the Pleiadians to announce their program of cleaning up our atmosphere and environmental pollution so our planet does not go into environmental collapse. Is that sort of a fair summary? Or
yes.
Now, there are so many questions that come from this, Stan. I mean, there's a thing of clearing up the symptoms, but if we merely go in and clear up the garbage, if the Pleiadians just go in and clear up the garbage, and they don't tell humanity how to transform their permanent war economy and their exploitative, non-sustainable lifestyle and economy, isn't the atmosphere just going to become polluted again?
Well, exactly. That is the reason why there's going to be, and there will be, a massive change in our economic concepts and our governmental setups, one thing and another, within the next several years. Within the next 4 or 5 years, there'll be massive changes. There's going to be, because we simply cannot go on the way we are, every man for himself. The world functions on greed. Suddenly greed becomes the operative word. And that is indicative of our society. Alien societies don't function that way. I for example, Alfred, I look at all the suffering in the world today. For example, malaria. India just reported the other day that they underreported their malaria situation vastly underreported, perhaps by several millions. There are millions of people suffering greatly from malaria, and mainly children. And there's dengue, and there's other mosquito vector diseases. Then, of course, there are others. There's AIDS, and there's cancer, and so forth. And the grim irony of it all is that here these children are suffering terribly. Why? Because there's no morphine given to them to ease their pain. Why not? Because they don't have the money to buy this stuff. I think that's a terrible, terrible statement of our so-called civilization. Now, do we have the money? Of course we do. Look at the nuclear bombs that we built. Look at the nuclear